Welcome to Inspinar. I am Dr. Nidhi Gupta, pediatric endocrinologist and digital wellness coach in Nashville, Tennessee. A few months ago, I came across an article in the New York Times by a reporter who chose to switch to a flip phone for a month just to experience what life might be like. Her article led me to Jose Briones, who is passionate about digital minimalism, cutting out the distractions, and being in the moment. Jose, welcome to Inspinar.
Thank you for having me on Inspinar. Is a big blessing just to be here and to share some of this message with you guys.
Thank you, Jose. So tell us what led you to give up your smartphone almost 4, maybe 5 years ago and launch a website to help people choose the right flip phone for them. Where did this idea come about?
So for me, it was I had just left university. I had just graduated with my degree, in divinity. So I went to a school, studied a Master's of Divinity, and I went to Georgia. So I went from Michigan to Georgia, and I went from a very structured environment to a more free environment. I was working with some churches out there in Georgia, helping them to do some community outreach and community building activities. That is my professional activities as I work with nonprofits. So as I was working with them, I happened to have a little bit more downtime than when I was in university. So a lot of that downtime got filled with Netflix, Facebook, Instagram. I got filled with a lot of watching videos on YouTube or, just searching stuff on the web. And I noticed my usage was skyrocketing. And because of that, it continued to skyrocket. I had to do something about it. And I decided to give the Light Phone 2 at the time a try. And after that, I started to post my experience on YouTube, start to kind of showcase this is how it's changing my life. And a lot of people started to ask questions. They started to ask, what about this flip phone? What about that? So instead of answering the same question again and again and again, I decided to create a website that helps people find the phone that best suits their needs.
And what's the name of your website, Jose?
You can find the website at the dumbphonefinder.org or you can .com actually, or you can find it at dumbphones.org. So dumbphones.org or dumbphonefinder.com.
Why do you call your website dumbphone.com? Why dumb phones?
So it's kind of like the term that has been used in the industry, right? So we have the smartphones, which have all of these abilities and apps, and they're filled with so many things. And then you have the counterpart. And it's a little bit of a bad term. I prefer using maybe just flip phone or voice phone, because it's voice first or voice only sometimes. But dumb phones is the one that sticks the most in popular culture. So because of that, just decided to use that.
So if people ask you, well, sounds pretty cool going from smartphones to flip phones, but then what about navigation? How do you get to places, even locally, places that you've never been to before, or random friend addresses in the suburbs? How do you get there? What about the weather? Do you get the tornado alerts? How do you check your emails? How do you stay up to date on work? And then what about FaceTime? How do you do all of that? So how do you address these concerns that people might find hard to wrap their heads around? Even though smartphones have been around for only about 10 to 15 years, we've become so dependent on them that even for us adults, it's so hard to imagine what life was like before we had the smartphones. What do you tell them?
So I think the way to think about it is whether you want to change your lifestyle or you just want a period of a detox, right? It's the difference between doing a diet for 30 days and changing your diet for the rest of your life. So it kind of depends on what you actually are looking for. And I believe there is a middle ground for everybody. So for me at the time, I wanted a complete lifestyle change. I wanted to start depending less on my smartphone. And that's why I got a phone that had very basic functions. Some flip phones have maps and some others don't. That's why the dumb phone finder can help you because you are able to select the apps that you need. You know, there's WhatsApp there. Sometimes people want to install Spotify because they really find value in it. So there are phones. One example is the Cat S22 Flip. That one is technically an Android phone. It can install any app that you want, but it just looks like a flip phone. So, because of the design, you're probably not going to be watching a full movie on a flip phone versus a full fledged smartphone with a massive screen, right?
Yes.
So, that may be helpful for people that need an in between. I call them transition devices. You know, you go in between a flip phone and a smartphone, and you kind of marry them, and it's a transition device. So, it depends on your goal. And yes, there are some people that say, I want the conveniences of life in my life. And there are others that say, I can accept some friction. I can accept some friction back into my life, maybe get around without maps all the time telling me what to do. Maybe I get to know my streets again. So there are different ways of looking at it, but that's how I look at it. I want to change in my lifestyle. I wanted to slow down. Not everybody has to do that, but if you choose to do it, then there are tools out there that can help you for sure.
If you choose to slow your lifestyle down, there are tools out there to help you get there. There are transitional devices so that you don't have to be on either extreme. Now, I'm advocating on behalf of those people who are probably looking for the middle path. And I'm not sure how many of those exist out there who are actually looking for the middle path, maybe more than what you and I imagine. For them, is it possible, Jose, to stay digitally unaddicted while they're still owning a smartphone?
I think it's possible. There are some helpful aids, you know, depending on your level of dependency. You know, there's a lot of people that are truly dependent. They have become dependent with the smartphones. They feel like it's a part of them. Actually, there's a study, there's a theory out there called the extended mind. It was popularized in 1998. It's a philosophical theory. There's an episode in Philosophy Bites from 2016, if I recall correctly, about this topic on the extended mind. And it essentially says that smartphones can be part of our minds because they hold so much information. This idea that they hold the directions, they hold the phone numbers, they hold our emails. So they're a repository of information that can be helpful in certain cases, but it's usually detrimental because it makes us forget. It doesn't make our minds nimble. So depending on your level of dependency, you probably can or cannot keep a smartphone on you. If you choose to keep a smartphone, then the first step would be to do an audit of your apps. What apps are actually useful for you, necessary for life, meaning if you didn't have this app, you would get fired. That's my definition of necessary, right? Like I will get fired if I don't have communication with X, Y, and Z person. Everything else is optional. Now, some optional things may give you a lot of value, like audiobooks, for example. They give me tons of value, or podcasts. They give you tons of value. You're listening to a podcast right now, right? So you may want to keep those. But social media, does it give you a lot of value? No. Okay, then delete it. Now, if you're not able to keep that commitment to yourself, then you may need some aids, whether physical or they are software based. There are a lot of companies. I'm just going to name a few. Unplug with a Q at the end. Clear Space. There are also OneSec. It's another app. Screen time, of course, with the passcode given to maybe a loved one. You know, a loved one sets up the passcode instead of yourself. And there is a tool on Android, if you're an Android user, called the Android Debug Bridge. You may need to Google it, learn how to use it, and essentially allows you to delete any app from the root and not able to install it again. So you may need to understand first whether your level of dependency is really high and you need to not only create a better environment for yourself, but also you may need a physical aid. There is another one that I forgot called Brick. It's an item that you tap, and when you tap it, it gives you access to the apps. And when you tap it again, it blocks all the apps. So those are things that you can think about to say, okay, my level of dependency is really high. I need a physical device or a friend to help me. My level of dependency is really low. I don't really need my smartphone all the time. I'm not addicted. Okay, I'll just delete the apps and probably I won't reinstall them because I don't have that dependency the um, to the item itself, to the smartphone. And everybody's different. There's a study that I just recently saw that talked about the low inhibition, and there's many things. I'll probably link it so you guys can link it too. And it was quite fascinating to see that there are people who have low inhibition and they're more prone to spend more time on the smartphones. And there are people that have high inhibition levels just in their system, and they're able to control their smartphone usage more. So recognize where you are and choose an appropriate tool.
Recognize where you are in terms of your relationship with your smartphone, in terms of your dependency on your devices, on internet, on technology, and then choose the tool that works best. Going back to the concept of individuals who have low inhibition versus high inhibition, Jose, do you feel if somebody who has low inhibition is actually able to acknowledge that they have low inhibition and that they have a problem, if they were to switch to a flip phone, do you feel that simply that gesture of switching to a flip phone will cure their digital addiction?
It doesn't, because I went through that, right? Like, I would consider myself somebody with low inhibition. That's why I had to switch to something, or I chose to switch to something that was more restrictive. It's going to have an impact, right? Because I don't have all the tools available anymore, because I don't have a fast browser and Netflix on the flip phone. I'm not going to be able to do those things. But the device is just a symptom of the larger problem, which is how is your lifestyle integrated in all of these things? This is something that I have come to a realization over time. At the beginning, I was like, no, everybody needs to switch to a dumb phone because that is the solution. But then I recognized that the device was not the problem. It was the lifestyle. If my lifestyle is dedicated to offline pursuits, it doesn't matter which device I have, because I'm going to be woodworking, walking with my dog, going to the mountains, playing soccer on the fields with people, maybe going to a board game party. All of those things are very entertaining, but they're offline based. I don't need my phone for any of those things. So whether I have a smartphone or whether I have a flip phone, I'm not going to pull it out because those are offline pursuits. Now, if my lifestyle is based on online things, like my work is online, so I need Slack, and then my entertainment is online, I go to watch on Netflix, then your devices are just going to amplify your lifestyle choices. So if you have a flip phone and your lifestyle is online, the flip phone is limited. It's not going to amplify it that much. If your lifestyle is online and you have a smartphone, it's just going to amplify that lifestyle and those decisions. So the flip phones and other very basic devices will have an impact, but they are not a one solution for everybody. They're not going to cure anything because devices only amplify our choices.
Devices only amplify our choices, and someone with low inhibition might or might not benefit from a flip phone unless they are willing to look at their lifestyle choices in general. Because even if they go to a flip phone, their mind or their intellect might be able to find other ways of pursuing those online
That is
interests of
exactly
entertainment.
that is exactly the point that happened with me. When I switched to the Light Phone 2, my mind was online because my lifestyle was very online. And yes, the Light Phone 2 did not amplify my usage of online, but then I just switched to my laptop. So then my laptop time went way up because I was looking for a device to amplify my lifestyle. So then I started to understand, okay, I need to change my lifestyle. And then once I change my lifestyle, my laptop, I just use it for the necessary things. And my light phone, I use it for, again, the necessary things. And it's a process that I think everybody goes through. And it allows us to understand that lifestyle eats devices or hacks, habits eat hacks any day of the week. Because if you build a habit, it's there with you every day of your life. The hacks may come and go and they may fail sometimes. So they are only have a limited reach.
The hacks come and go, the lifestyle stays with you every day of the week. A habit that you build stays with you every single moment. And I also hear that it is possible to stay digitally de addicted while owning a smartphone. And it is possible to still be digitally addicted while owning a flip phone. That brings me to the other aspect or the perspective of this discussion, Jose. When we are exposed to a lot of online entertainment, we tend to gravitate towards the online entertainment. Is it possible that excessive exposure to online entertainment blunts the pleasure that we are getting or the joy that we are getting from offline pursuits? And then over time, our brain just doesn't find those offline pursuits interesting or entertaining enough or as entertaining enough as the online ones are.
I believe that is true, and there's a lot of research that has been conducted in this specific way. So, for example, when you see pictures of a very beautiful place, we're going to start with the more maybe mundane. Let's say you see a picture on Instagram about a very beautiful place, and then you go to that place and you realize that it's not as picture perfect because it was highly edited online, right? That makes you enjoy the place a little bit less because it's not as you saw it, a representation of online. This happens a lot, and there's a lot of research as well on online dating, right? You see a person which they present themselves in the most fashionable way to attract your eyes on an app, and you swipe right. And when you go and meet them, they may have gained a few pounds or something may have happened to them that their representation maybe was from 15 years ago and they look totally different. So you don't enjoy that person again in the same manner. Going a little even deeper in that relationship area, and this is a topic that I would say is closely correlated to smartphone use and online use, but it's deeply troubling as well. Is there has been studies and different people react differently, but a good majority of the population seems to react to adult content and enjoy um, intercourse less when they are engaging with their partner, right? Because they see something online, the adult content represents something of how they idealize a sexual encounter. And when they have it on offline, right, when they themselves engage in this behavior, they enjoy it less. And there's a lot of other examples. So I believe there is an impact, and we have to learn to regulate it. We have to learn to say, this is something that I see online, but I am going to enjoy what I have in front of me, right? I'm going to be able to enjoy the beautiful picture or the person that is on the other side because they are valuable, right? It's not because of how online presented it to me, but because they have intrinsic value. I'm going to do my best. And if the relationship doesn't work out, fine. You may go find somebody else, another partner, whatever it is. Or maybe the picture was very, very different and you may not be attracted to them again, and you can just be honest with them, have a polite conversation, although it is of course difficult and maybe frowned upon, but you try to be and try to do the best you can. And I think that yes, the things that are online, the entertainment, the manner in which things occur does have an impact, and we have to learn to regulate it in order to learn more about the offline and real encounters that we have in life versus the online encounters that we have as well.
We have to learn to self regulate what we are exposing our brains, our minds, our hearts, our souls to online so that we can still preserve a part of our humanity to be able to enjoy what the offline world offers. And that's where, Jose, the biggest struggle for a majority of teenagers, children, and adults comes in. How do you manage time online versus offline? What is the secret to managing the time online and offline?
I don't think there is a secret as to how to do so in a manner that you completely shift. I think what you have to think about is I call it time zones, right? So every day you, or maybe every week, I would say a week may be a better regulation, but every day also you can have a goal. And you can say, my goal today is to spend 4 hours online. And when you're online, be online, search, watch, enjoy, talk with your friends, do whatever you have to do. Don't hold back. And then you say, after those 4 hours, I'm going to go find stuff to do offline. Maybe it's more, maybe it's less, depending on your usage, but you decide, not the other way around, which is a lot of people use their phone and they don't know how many hours they use their phone. They think they may use it for very little, but they pick it up between here and there when they're in the restroom, when they're at the bus stop, when they're at the light, like when you're in your car and you're like, oh, let me just check this real quick. They check their email, when they're eating or so just decide, make a decision. I'm going to use my phone. I'm going to use online sources of entertainment for 6 hours, 7 hours, whatever it is. Let's say it's 10 hours. Okay, I'll use it for 10 hours. But after that, I'm going to enjoy other things and I'm going to regulate my usage. I'm going to count my time. I'm going to do my best and then we'll go from there. So I think everybody needs to adapt to their circumstances. Some people work remotely. So, okay, you need to spend 6 hours online for work. Fine. How many hours are you going to spend for entertainment after that? Two, okay, I'll spend 8 hours of my day, one third of my day, I'll spend that online. That's fine. This is the reality in which I live. This is my current job. I cannot change some of those things. But the other time, be offline. Be truly present with the people that love you and try to do your best at that. So create your time zones. How much are you going to sleep? How much are you going to be online? How much are you going to be offline? And the offline time, fill it with things that give you a lot of joy, habits, hobbies that actually give you satisfaction so that you come back to them because your dopamine is not just coming from one source, meaning the online source, but it's also coming from the offline source.
So well said, Jose. Find some activities in the offline world that get your dopamine going so that the only source or the biggest source of dopamine in your life is not the online pursuits. I love the idea of creating time zones, a time zone for sleep, a time zone for online pursuits, and a time zone for offline pursuits. However many hours that might be, that varies from individual to individual given their circumstances. Fascinating, fascinating conversation, Jose. After listening to this episode, if someone out there is motivated to try a flip phone, where should they start?
Of course, the Dumbphone Finder is the most natural place, but there are other resources out there. I'm not the only person talking about this. There are other authors that have brought it to attention. And there, it's also varies by region. And this is where, the tool I created is just very simple, but it helps you because if you live in a different country than the United States, you may have different options. There's a lot to understand. You cannot just use a very old phone anymore. So you need to understand about VoLTE and okay, does it have WhatsApp and all that stuff. So the Dumb Phone Finder is a good place. But there are other places out there as well. Your local store, of course, you can just go and see what works with my provider, right? So if I have AT&T or Verizon, go and ask them hey, is there something that works that I can try out? What I
And
recommend people to
the
do
people
is
working at the AT&T store or any other carrier store might just fall out of their chairs.
yeah, of course. They're going to be like, wait, what? You don't want the iPhone 16 or 15, whichever one it is, coming out now very soon? Wait, why? You just tell them, you just want to do an experiment. Maybe go for a weekend. And the good thing is that not all things have to be costly, right? So a lot of these flip phones cost maybe $50. There is one that I highly recommend. It's on the Track Phone network, so you can buy at Walmart. It's $20. It's the TCL Flip 2. It's very capable, very snappy, and it does the basics well. Nothing extra. It doesn't do any email or WhatsApp or all of those things. The Cat S22 is now $79. And there are other more niche items, companies that are listening to the feedback of consumers and they're charging a premium to listen to you and to make the improvements for their products, right? Which you need to decide whether it's worth it to you or not. For me, it was. Back in the day, I bought the Light Phone 2, and every year it has just been getting better. I paid about $300 back then, which is the price of a smartphone. It's very expensive, but the product has gotten better. They recently announced their new device. It's right now $499, which is more expensive, right? Like, or $399, $399. It's $399 right now. So it's more expensive, but I trust the company, and I know that they're going to continue improving the device. Sometimes when you buy a phone that is $20, you probably are not going to get any support or any feedback, and nothing, because you pay $20, right? You get what you pay for. But if you go with companies that are more niche oriented, they may be a little bit more expensive, but you can expect support, updates, and if there's something critical, there's customer service as well that they have. And you have to think about that on your personal level, personal values, or even personal budget. What can you afford? Um, and those are things. The last thing is, for the crowd that's looking for flip phones, I do have a YouTube channel, and I do reviews, and I also listen to your feedback and your questions. And if you go watch the videos and leave a question there, I'll probably answer it at some point in time, since I do this as a hobby, something that it's really interesting to me and something that I advocate for. uh, Not my full-time job, so I do have to limited time to reply, but I do reply because I believe in the value of community and creating tools that can help people recover their offline time.
Creating tools so that people can recover their offline time. Thank you so much, Jose. It was an informative conversation, culturally different, countercultural, I would say, something that might motivate people to consider living a digitally minimalistic lifestyle, whether they choose to live it with a smartphone or without a smartphone. Thank you again for being on Inspinar.
Thank you for having me, and I hope people got inspired and they continue listening to other podcasts so they continue that inspiration in other areas of their life.
Thank you so much, Jose. Let's reconnect with what truly matters, whether you have a smartphone or you have a flip phone. Let's reconnect with health, joy, and efficiency. Let's reclaim our time and attention. Let's be the drivers of our own life. Let's ungrip devices and grip life. I will see you next time.